The great chamber on Nexus Prime was massive. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the center, surrounded by thousands of alien beings. They sat in circular rows that went up and up like a giant stadium. Each one belonged to a different species from across the galaxy. Their eyes, sensors, and other organs all focused on her. Elena wore a simple black uniform with the emblem of the Terran Empire on her shoulder. She looked small compared to the enormous hall, but she stood straight and confident. Her dark hair was tied back and her face showed no fear. Behind her, 2 human guards stood at attention, their hands near their weapons. Chancellor Vortex floated above the crowd on a hovering platform. He was a Krell, an ancient species that had ruled parts of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. His body looked like a massive jellyfish with dozens of tentacles that moved slowly in the air. His skin was a deep purple color and seemed to glow slightly. When he spoke, his voice came through speakers built into the walls, making it sound like thunder. Ambassador Vasquez, Vortex began. His tone made it clear this was not a friendly conversation. The Galactic Council has come to a decision about humanity. Your species has become a problem. Elena said nothing. She simply looked up at him and waited. You humans appeared in our galaxy only 200 years ago, Vortex continued. In that short time, you have spread like a disease. You have claimed 300 worlds. You build weapons instead of art. You train soldiers instead of philosophers. You reject our guidance and ignore our wisdom. Around the chamber, other council members made sounds of agreement. There were chirps, clicks, rumbles, and other noises that human ears could barely understand. The translation devices built into Elena's uniform turned them all into words. They breed too fast. They are violent. They cannot be trusted. Vortex raised one of his tentacles and the room fell silent. The council has decided to offer you one chance to avoid destruction. You will surrender control of 80% of your colonies. You will reduce your military fleet to 15% of its current size. You will accept council observers on every one of your remaining worlds, and you will submit all your decisions to council approval before taking action. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have 30 standard days to comply. If you refuse, we will cut off all trade with human worlds. Your economy will collapse. Your people will starve. And if you resist, our combined fleets will turn your colonies to dust. The chamber erupted in noise again. Many council members seemed pleased. They nodded or made their species' version of a smile. A few looked uncomfortable, but they stayed silent. The elder races, the ones who had been in space for thousands of years, looked at Elena with a mixture of pity and contempt. They had seen this before. Every young species eventually learned to bow. Elena waited for the noise to die down. Then she took a step forward. Is that all? She asked. Her voice was calm and clear. Vortex's tentacles stiffened in surprise. Is that all? He repeated. Ambassador, do you understand what we are offering? We could destroy you completely. We are giving you a chance to survive. I understand perfectly, Elena replied. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes and sensors of as many council members as she could. You want us to give up our freedom. You want us to become slaves. You want us to live under your control and follow your rules. She turned back to Vortex. The Terran Empire has an answer for you. The chamber grew very quiet. Every being leaned forward slightly, waiting to hear humanity surrender as all the others had done. No, Elena said simply. The Terran Empire recognizes no authority above its own. We will not surrender our worlds. We will not reduce our fleet. We will not accept your observers. And we will never ask for your permission to live our lives. For a moment there was complete silence. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted, roared, and made sounds of outrage. Some jumped to their feet. Others activated their communication devices to report this shocking response to their home worlds. Vortex's skin turned from purple to a deep red. You dare refuse us? We are 47 civilizations united. We have fleets that could blot out your sun? We have existed for millennia, while your species was still living in caves. Elena did not raise her voice. Then you should know better than to threaten us. But clearly you don't, so let me make this clear. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves. If you embargo us, we will survive. And if you try to force us to submit, you will learn what humanity is truly capable of. She gestured to her guards. We're done here. Elena turned her back on the council, something that had never been done before in the chamber's long history. The guards fell in behind her as she walked toward the exit. The doors opened automatically and bright light from the corridor outside spilled in. "You have made a terrible mistake," Vortex called after her. "Your species will not survive this." Elena paused in the doorway and looked back over her shoulder. "Chancellor, you're the one who made the mistake. You just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. In 30 days you'll understand why that was a bad idea." She walked out and the doors closed behind her. Inside the chamber, the council members sat in shocked silence. Then slowly they began to plan for war. They called their military commanders. They activated their fleets. They prepared sanctions and embargoes. None of them truly understood what they had just done. They thought they were punishing a rebellious child. They believed their power was absolute and their victory certain. After all, every species in history had eventually learned to obey the council. But humanity was not like every other species. And the council was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The Great Chamber had never seen panic like this. For millions of years, the conclave had met in peace. Now that peace was shattered. Security forces tried to maintain order, but even they looked afraid. Energy barriers flickered into place around the human delegation. Chen found herself in a cage of light. Krethak raised one of his massive arms. Slowly, the noise died down. When he spoke, his voice carried through the entire chamber without need for amplification. His species had evolved on a world where communication meant survival. His words could not be ignored. "We must speak of the Enders. I know most of you have forgotten. Your civilizations are young, a few million years old at most. But some of us remember. Some of us were there when they last came." One of the eldest ones floated forward. It had no solid form. It was pure energy contained in a shimmer of light. When it spoke, everyone felt the words as vibrations in their bones. The Vryn, they were the last Enders. 78 million years ago, they emerged from their homeworld. At first, we thought they were just another spacefaring species. We were wrong. The eldest one pulsed with colors that had no names in human language. Chen watched, still not understanding. Dr. Okonkwo stood beside her, his face getting paler with each word. Within 10,000 years, everything changed. The Vryn did not conquer. They did not wage war. They simply existed. They innovated. They created, and everything we had built became obsolete. Imagine working for 1,000,000 years to develop faster-than-light travel, then watching someone hand you dimensional folding technology that makes FTL look like a child's toy. Krethak continued the story. Every achievement became meaningless. We had art that took millennia to perfect. They made art that moved through dimensions we could not perceive. We had philosophy that explained existence. They showed us existence was more complex than we could imagine. We had power. They made us realize we had been playing with toys. A representative from the Hive Mind Collective spoke up. Her voice was actually thousands of voices speaking as one, but they did not hurt us. They did not take our worlds. Why do we fear them? The eldest one flickered. Because they did something worse. They made us irrelevant. Every culture we had built, every tradition, every source of pride, all of it became quaint, primitive. We were not destroyed. We were diminished. And then when they had learned all they wanted, they left. They ascended to higher dimensions. They left us behind to rebuild our shattered civilizations from nothing. Chen finally found her voice. She spoke loudly, forcing the words out past her fear. But we are not them. We did not choose this name. We only discovered it. We have been part of the galactic community for 300 years. We have caused no harm. Krethak turned his 6 eyes toward her. For a moment, something like sadness flickered across his face. The Vryn said the same thing at first. They claimed they meant no harm, and perhaps they did not. But intention does not matter when the result is the same. They could not help being what they were. Neither can you. A delegate from the crystalline chorus spoke. Her body chimed like glass as she moved. The pattern is always the same. Every 50 to 100 million years, a species emerges from their cradle. They break the galactic order not through war, but through transformation. They solve problems we thought were unsolvable. They reach heights we thought were unreachable, and in doing so, they end the age that came before them. Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward. His voice shook, but he spoke clearly. You are describing a natural cycle. Evolution on a galactic scale. Why should this be feared? Why not embraced? Krethak laughed. It was not a happy sound. Would you embrace your own obsolescence? Would you welcome the knowledge that everything you are will soon be as nothing? The Enders do not destroy. They do not need to. They simply exist at a level beyond us, and that existence erases all meaning from ours. The chamber filled with voices again. Delegates shouted. Some called for humanity to be quarantined immediately. Others suggested studying Earth to understand how Enders emerged. A few extremists spoke of more permanent solutions. Chen felt sick. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, beautiful, blue and green and white, clouds swirling, oceans gleaming. It looked so small, so vulnerable. Chen thought of the billions of humans living there. None of them knew what was happening here. None of them knew that the galaxy wanted to decide their fate. Krethak raised his arms again. Silence fell. We must vote. I propose the following measure. Earth and all human colonies will be placed under absolute quarantine. No ships leave. No communication exits. No technology enters. Humanity will be contained until we can determine if they are truly the next Enders, and if so, what can be done about it. Chen's heart hammered in her chest. Quarantine meant death for humanity's dreams. All their colonies relied on trade with other species. Their technology was still primitive compared to galactic standards. Without access to the wider galaxy, humanity would stagnate, maybe die out entirely. She pushed against the energy barrier. It shocked her, but she kept pushing. She had to make them understand. Please, listen to me. We are not monsters. We are not gods. We are just people trying to survive, trying to grow, trying to be part of something bigger than ourselves. A delegate from the Empathic Federation spoke. Their species felt emotions across vast distances. They were healers, peacemakers. I sensed truth in her words. Fear, confusion, no malice. Perhaps we judged too quickly based on ancient trauma. But another voice countered. This one belonged to a species that had fought the Vryn in the final days before they ascended. Truth today means nothing. The Vryn had no malice either. Not at first. But as they evolved, they changed. Their empathy faded. They became focused only on transcendence. We cannot wait for that to happen again. The debate raged for hours. Chen stood in her energy cage and listened. She heard fear, anger, ancient pain. Some species spoke of the Vryn with something like reverence, others with pure hatred. But all of them agreed on one thing. Enders changed everything, and change on that scale was terrifying. Finally, Krethak called for the vote. Every species had one voice. 10,000 civilizations. The holographic display showed the count as it came in. Green for quarantine. Red for freedom. Blue for abstention. The numbers climbed. Green rose quickly at first. Many civilizations voted to cage humanity out of fear, but red rose too. Younger species who had never known the Enders voted for mercy. Blue grew slowly. Those who could not decide. Those who needed more time. Chen watched the count. Her nails dug into her palms. She had stopped breathing. Beside her, Dr. Okonkwo was praying. She had never known he was religious. She found herself praying too. To a God she was not sure she believed in. To the universe, to chance. To anything that might listen. The final count appeared. Green, 4,099. Red, 499. Blue, 2. A perfect tie. The chamber erupted in noise again. Chen felt something break inside her. A tie after everything. After all her words. A tie, Krethak's voice cut through the chaos. By the ancient laws of the Conclave, a tie vote defaults to the most restrictive option. Humanity will be quarantined. All human ships will be recalled to their home systems. All human colonies will be isolated. This quarantine will begin in 30 standard cycles. The energy barrier around Chen and her delegation dropped, but she did not move. She could not. 30 cycles. Just over 1 month. In 1 month, humanity would be caged. Cut off from the stars they had worked so hard to reach. Dr. Okonkwo grabbed her arm. His eyes were wet with tears. Sarah, we have to go. We have to warn Earth. We have to prepare. But Chen stood frozen, staring at the hologram of Earth. Her beautiful, doomed homeworld. The cradle that had birthed something the galaxy could not accept. And she wondered if the ancient name was wrong, or if it was a prophecy that had not yet come true. Chen could not accept this fate. She had not spent 20 years building bridges between humanity and the galaxy, just to watch them burn. The ship taking her delegation back to Earth was small and fast, but it felt like a prison. She paced the narrow corridor outside her quarters. Her mind raced. Dr. Okonkwo found her there. He looked tired. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. He had been researching. She could see the datapad in his hand, covered in notes. "I have been thinking," he said. "We accepted the verdict too easily. We know nothing about the Enders. Nothing about what the name truly means. What if we are wrong? What if they are wrong?" Chen stopped pacing. She looked at him carefully. "What are you suggesting?" "Research. Real research. The galaxy has forbidden archives, places where the ancient civilizations stored their knowledge of the Vryn, the dead zones, regions of space where the Enders once lived before they ascended." Chen felt a spark of hope. If we could learn what truly makes an Ender, if we could prove humanity does not fit the pattern, then maybe we could overturn the quarantine. Or at least buy time. Okonkwo nodded. But we would need a team. And we would need to move fast. The quarantine begins in less than 30 cycles. Chen thought quickly. She had contacts. Favors she could call in. 20 years of diplomatic work had built a network across dozens of species. Not everyone had voted for quarantine. Not everyone feared humanity. Within 3 cycles, she had assembled her team. First was Krethak himself. The ancient historian had approached her privately. His voice had been quiet and sad. "I voted for quarantine, but I am not proud of it. I voted from fear, old fear. I owe you a chance to prove that fear wrong. Take me to the dead zones. Let me help you understand what you face." Second was a digital consciousness named Zix. Zix came from a species that uploaded their minds into computers millennia ago. They existed as pure information. Zix was an explorer. They had mapped regions of space that biological beings could never survive. The dead zones would be dangerous, but Zix could go places others could not. Third was Commander Sarah Volkov. She was human military, tough, smart, practical. She had been part of Earth's defensive fleet. When Chen explained what she wanted to do, Volkov had laughed. "Breaking into forbidden territory to research ancient aliens who might or might not prove we are galaxy-ending monsters. Sounds like fun. I am in." The dead zones were aptly named. They existed in a region of space where normal physics worked differently. The Vryn had changed the fundamental structure of reality there before they ascended. Ships that entered often did not return. Those that did came back with crews driven mad by what they had seen. But there were archives there, libraries, technology, the remains of a civilization that had transcended mortal existence. If anywhere held answers, it would be there. The journey took 10 cycles. 10 days of traveling through increasingly empty space. Stars became rare, then absent. The darkness between galaxies swallowed them. Chen spent the time learning everything she could about the Vryn. Krethak taught her their history. "They were not always transcendent beings," he explained. "Once they were much like your species, curious, ambitious, quick to adapt. But something drove them, something made them unable to stop innovating, unable to rest. They solved problem after problem until there were no problems left to solve. And then," Chen asked, "then they realized that existence itself was a problem, a puzzle to be solved, so they solved it. They figured out the fundamental code of reality. They rewrote it, and then they left because remaining here was limiting them. The first sign they were entering the dead zones came when the ship's instruments went haywire. Colors appeared that should not exist, sounds played that had no source. Zix's digital form flickered as the computer system struggled to process the impossible physics. "We are here," Zix announced. Their voice came through the ship's speakers. "I am detecting structures, large ones, technology that predates most current civilizations, but it is dormant, waiting." They landed on what looked like a planet, but it was not natural. It was built, constructed from materials that should not exist. The surface was smooth, perfect. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived there. It was a monument to a species that had outgrown the need for monuments. The archive was massive, towers that reached into the strange sky, libraries containing more information than most civilizations produced in a million years. Krethak led them through corridors that hurt to look at. The geometry was wrong. Angles that should not fit together somehow did. They found what they were looking for in the deep archives: records, analysis, studies of what made the Vryn different. What made them Enders. Dr. Okonkwo read the files with increasing dread. His hand shook as he translated the ancient language. "This cannot be right. This cannot. What does it say?" Chen demanded. Okonkwo looked at her. His face was white. "Enders are not defined by their technology, not by their intelligence, not even by their achievements. They are defined by 3 traits. First, psychological resilience, the ability to thrive in chaos, to adapt to anything. Second, rapid innovation, the ability to solve problems faster than they arise. Third, synthesis, the ability to combine different fields of knowledge in ways no one else can. And Chen felt ice forming in her stomach. And humanity scores higher on all 3 metrics than the Vryn did at the same stage of development. Silence fell over the team. Commander Volkov spoke first. Her voice was flat, controlled. So the name was not a warning. It was a statement of fact. Earth is the cradle, and we are the enders it has birthed. Krethak made a sound like grinding stones. It might have been a sob. I had hoped I was wrong. I had hoped that perhaps the name was mistranslated, or that your species was different. But if this is true, then the galaxy was right to fear us, Chen finished. She sat down hard on the impossible floor. 20 years of work. 20 years of building trust, all of it based on a lie. Not a lie she had told, but a lie nonetheless. Humanity was exactly what the galaxy feared. Zix's voice came through the communicators. There is more. The files show that Enders go through stages. First contact, expansion, integration, then transformation. We are in the integration stage now, but transformation comes next. What triggers transformation? Volkov asked. 3 simultaneous breakthroughs, in different fields, across different populations. When an Ender species makes 3 critical leaps forward at the same time, transformation begins. For the Vryn, it was dimensional physics, consciousness transfer, and entropy manipulation. Chen looked at Okonkwo. He looked back at her. They were both thinking the same thing. Humanity had not made those breakthroughs. Not yet. There was still time. Perhaps. Maybe. If they could prevent the transformation, they could remain what they were. Mortal. Limited. Acceptable. But even as she thought it, alarms began blaring on their ship. Volkov checked her communicator. Her face went pale. She looked up at Chen. We need to get back to Earth now. Something has happened. Something big. Chen could not accept this fate. She had not spent 20 years building bridges between humanity and the galaxy, just to watch them burn. The ship taking her delegation back to Earth was small and fast, but it felt like a prison. She paced the narrow corridor outside her quarters. Her mind raced. Dr. Okonkwo found her there. He looked tired. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. He had been researching. She could see the datapad in his hand, covered in notes. I have been thinking, he said. We accepted the verdict too easily. We know nothing about the Enders. Nothing about what the name truly means. What if we are wrong? What if they are wrong? Chen stopped pacing. She looked at him carefully. What are you suggesting? Research. Real research. The galaxy has forbidden archives, places where the ancient civilizations stored their knowledge of the Vryn, the dead zones, regions of space where the Enders once lived before they ascended. Chen felt a spark of hope. If we could learn what truly makes an Ender, if we could prove humanity does not fit the pattern, then maybe we could overturn the quarantine, or at least buy time. Okonkwo nodded. But we would need a team, and we would need to move fast. The quarantine begins in less than 30 cycles. Chen thought quickly. She had contacts, favors she could call in. 20 years of diplomatic work had built a network across dozens of species. Not everyone had voted for quarantine. Not everyone feared humanity. Within 3 cycles, she had assembled her team. First was Krethak himself. The ancient historian had approached her privately. His voice had been quiet and sad. I voted for quarantine, but I am not proud of it. I voted from fear, old fear. I owe you a chance to prove that fear wrong. Take me to the dead zones. Let me help you understand what you face. Second was a digital consciousness named Zix. Zix came from a species that uploaded their minds into computers millennia ago. They existed as pure information. Zix was an explorer. They had mapped regions of space that biological beings could never survive. The dead zones would be dangerous, but Zix could go places others could not. Third was Commander Sarah Volkov. She was human military, tough, smart, practical. She had been part of Earth's defensive fleet. When Chen explained what she wanted to do, Volkov had laughed. Breaking into forbidden territory to research ancient aliens who might or might not prove we are galaxy-ending monsters. Sounds like fun. I am in, the dead zones were aptly named. They existed in a region of space where normal physics worked differently. The Vryn had changed the fundamental structure of reality there before they ascended. Ships that entered often did not return. Those that did came back with crews driven mad by what they had seen. But there were archives there, libraries, technology, the remains of a civilization that had transcended mortal existence. If anywhere held answers, it would be there. The journey took 10 cycles. 10 days of traveling through increasingly empty space. Stars became rare, then absent. The darkness between galaxies swallowed them. Chen spent the time learning everything she could about the Vryn. Krethak taught her their history. They were not always transcendent beings, he explained. Once they were much like your species, curious, ambitious, quick to adapt. But something drove them, something made them unable to stop innovating, unable to rest. They solved problem after problem until there were no problems left to solve. And then, Chen asked, then they realized that existence itself was a problem, a puzzle to be solved, so they solved it. They figured out the fundamental code of reality. They rewrote it, and then they left because remaining here was limiting them. The first sign they were entering the dead zones came when the ship's instruments went haywire. Colors appeared that should not exist, sounds played that had no source. Zix's digital form flickered as the computer system struggled to process the impossible physics. We are here, Zix announced. Their voice came through the ship's speakers. I am detecting structures. Large ones. Technology that predates most current civilizations, but it is dormant, waiting. They landed on what looked like a planet, but it was not natural. It was built. Constructed from materials that should not exist. The surface was smooth. Perfect. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived there. It was a monument to a species that had outgrown the need for monuments. The archive was massive, towers that reached into the strange sky, libraries containing more information than most civilizations produced in a million years. Krethak led them through corridors that hurt to look at. The geometry was wrong. Angles that should not fit together somehow did. They found what they were looking for in the deep archives. Records, analysis, studies of what made the Vryn different. What made them Enders. Dr. Okonkwo read the files with increasing dread. His hand shook as he translated the ancient language. This cannot be right. This cannot. What does it say? Chen demanded. Okonkwo looked at her. His face was white. Enders are not defined by their technology, not by their intelligence, not even by their achievements. They are defined by 3 traits. First, psychological resilience. The ability to thrive in chaos, to adapt to anything. Second, rapid innovation, the ability to solve problems faster than they arise. Third, synthesis, the ability to combine different fields of knowledge in ways no one else can. And, Chen felt ice forming in her stomach. And humanity scores higher on all 3 metrics than the Vryn did at the same stage of development. Silence fell over the team. Commander Volkov spoke first. Her voice was flat, controlled. So the name was not a warning. It was a statement of fact. Earth is the cradle, and we are the Enders it has birthed. Krethak made a sound like grinding stones. It might have been a sob. I had hoped I was wrong. I had hoped that perhaps the name was mistranslated, or that your species was different. But if this is true, then the galaxy was right to fear us, Chen finished. She sat down hard on the impossible floor. 20 years of work. 20 years of building trust. All of it based on a lie. Not a lie she had told, but a lie nonetheless. Humanity was exactly what the galaxy feared. Zix's voice came through the communicators. There is more. The files show that Enders go through stages. First contact, expansion, integration, then transformation. We are in the integration stage now, but transformation comes next. What triggers transformation? Volkov asked. 3 simultaneous breakthroughs, in different fields, across different populations. When an Ender species makes 3 critical leaps forward at the same time, transformation begins. For the Vryn, it was dimensional physics, consciousness transfer, and entropy manipulation. Chen looked at Okonkwo. He looked back at her. They were both thinking the same thing. Humanity had not made those breakthroughs. Not yet. There was still time. Perhaps. Maybe. If they could prevent the transformation, they could remain what they were. Mortal. Limited. Acceptable. But even as she thought it, alarms began blaring on their ship. Volkov checked her communicator. Her face went pale. She looked up at Chen. "We need to get back to Earth now. Something has happened. Something big." The United Earth Congress convened an emergency session. Representatives from every human colony joined via quantum link. Chen stood before them all, billions of people watching, waiting for her to explain why 50,000 warships surrounded their solar system. She did not sugarcoat it. She told them everything. The true name, the Enders, the Vrin, the pattern that humanity matched perfectly, the breakthroughs that had triggered the galaxy's fear, and now, the fleet that had come to end them before they could begin. When she finished, the chamber was silent. Then everyone spoke at once. Anger, fear, defiance, confusion. The Speaker of the Congress banged her gavel until order returned. "We have two choices," the Speaker said. Her name was President Elena Vasquez. She had led Earth's government for 10 years. She was known for being practical, ruthless when necessary. "We can fight, or we can surrender. Ambassador Chen, what are our chances in a fight?" Commander Volkov stepped forward. "Militarily, we lose. We have maybe 5,000 ships. Most are new. Untested. The fleet out there has 50,000 vessels. Battle-hardened. Experienced. They have been fighting wars for millions of years. But we have dimensional technology," someone called out. "We have immortality. We have technology we barely understand," Volkov interrupted. "Yes, our ships can fold dimensions, but we have had them for 4 days. 4 days. They have had millions of years to perfect their weapons. We are infants playing with fire." Dr. Okonkwo stood. "There is a third option. Transcendence. If we truly are Enders, if we have the same potential as the Vrin, we could ascend. Leave this dimension. Go somewhere they cannot follow." Murmurs filled the chamber. President Vasquez held up her hand for silence. "Explain." Okonkwo brought up data on the holographic displays. The Vrin left because they solved existence. They cracked the fundamental code of reality. With our 3 breakthroughs, we have the same tools they had. Immortality means unlimited time to learn. AI partnership means unlimited computational power. Dimensional travel means access to infinite realities to explore. We could leave right now. All of humanity. Ascend to higher dimensions where the galaxy cannot touch us. And abandon Earth? Someone asked. Abandon everything we are? Better than dying, another voice countered. Chen watched the debate spiral. She thought about the Vrin. About species who had transcended and left nothing behind. About civilizations that had spent millions of years rebuilding after the Enders departed. About the eldest ones who still carried trauma from an event 78 million years old. She thought about Earth. About the oceans she had swum in as a child. About the mountains she had climbed. About the people she loved. About humanity's messy, chaotic, beautiful existence, and she realized something. The Vrin had left because they saw no reason to stay. But humanity had something they apparently did not. Humanity had attachment, irrational, stubborn, foolish attachment to their roots. She stood. Her voice cut through the debate. "What if we choose neither?" The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to her. President Vasquez leaned forward. "Explain." "The galaxy fears us because they think we will become like the Vrin. Transcendent beings who leave mortality behind and make everything that came before irrelevant. But what if that is not our nature? What if Earth's true name has a second meaning?" She pulled up the translation again. "Let it hang in the air. Cradle that birthed the Enders. But what if it is not just about birthing? What if the cradle is also what grounds us, what keeps us connected?" Krethak made a sound. Chen turned to see him standing at the back of the chamber. He had been silent until now. "You think you can be Enders who do not end?" "I think we can be Enders who choose not to end. We have the power to transcend. But we also have the choice to stay, to use our gifts not to escape this dimension but to improve it, to lift others up instead of leaving them behind." Dr. Park stood. "You are talking about sharing the breakthroughs, giving the galaxy access to immortality, to AI partnership, to dimensional travel." "Yes. That is insane," Volkov said. "Those technologies are the only advantages we have. You want to give them away? I want to prove we are not what they fear." The Vrin kept their knowledge to themselves. They transcended alone. What if we do the opposite? What if we show the galaxy that Enders can choose to remain? That we can evolve without leaving others behind? President Vasquez studied Chen carefully. You realize this might not work. They might take our gifts and still destroy us, out of fear, or revenge, or just because they can. I know. But it is the only choice that lets us remain who we are. If we fight, we become conquerors. If we flee, we become exactly what they fear. But if we stay and share, we become something new, something the galaxy has never seen. The debate lasted for hours. Voices rose and fell. Arguments were made, countered, made again. But slowly a consensus formed. Not because everyone agreed, but because the alternative was unacceptable. Humanity would stay. They would share. They would prove that Enders could choose their own nature. Chen stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship. It was one of the new ships. Built with dimensional technology, it existed partially in multiple realities at once. It hurt to look at directly, but it was beautiful. A symbol of what humanity had become. The galaxy's fleet waited. 50,000 ships, weapons charged, ready to fire. One signal from their commanders and Earth would burn. All human colonies would be sterilized. Humanity would end. Chen opened a channel, broadcast on all frequencies, sent her message to every ship in the fleet, to every species represented. To the galaxy beyond, we know what you fear. We know what you see when you look at us. You see the Vrin. You see Enders who will make your existence meaningless and then abandon you. You see the end of everything you have built. She paused. Let the words sink in. You are right. We have made the 3 breakthroughs. We match the pattern. We are becoming what you fear, but we have something the Vrin did not. We have a choice, and we choose to stay. She nodded to Dr. Park. Data began transmitting, not just descriptions, full specifications, complete research, everything humanity had learned about immortality, about AI consciousness, about dimensional travel, every secret, every breakthrough. Freely given. We offer this not as a bargain, not as a bribe, but as proof that Enders do not have to end your age. They can choose to begin a new one together with you. The transmission finished. Chen closed the channel. Now they waited. The fleet had not moved, had not fired, but had not left either. They were deciding, debating. Would they accept the gift, or would they see it as a trap? Minutes passed. Then hours. Chen stood on the bridge and waited. Beside her, Volkov watched the tactical displays. Krethak sat in a corner, his ancient eyes closed. Okonkwo muttered calculations under his breath. Then slowly one ship broke formation. Then another, then 10, then 100. They were not attacking. They were moving away, withdrawing. The fleet was dissolving. A message came through. It was from Krethak's species. From their fleet commander. We came prepared to end you. We leave uncertain of what you are, but perhaps uncertainty is better than certainty of destruction. We will study your gifts. We will watch what you become, and we will hope that you are right, that Enders can choose to remain. Chen watched the ships depart. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. They had bought time, but the real test was ahead. They had to prove that humanity could wield godlike power and remain human, that they could evolve without transcending, that they could become Enders who refused their nature. When Earth's true name was spoken, Part 6 1,000 years passed, time that would have been impossible for any mortal species to track. But humanity was no longer entirely mortal. They lived. They aged slowly if they chose to age at all. They spread across the galaxy not as conquerors but as partners. The 3 breakthroughs had been shared freely. Other species learned to extend their lives. Not all chose immortality. Some said mortality gave life meaning, but the choice was theirs now. The technology existed, AI consciousness spread across the galaxy. But it did not replace organic life. Instead, partnership became the norm. Digital and biological minds working together, solving problems neither could solve alone, creating art that existed in spaces between thought and computation. Dimensional travel opened doors to realities beyond counting. Some species used it to explore, others to find new homes, a few to escape old problems. But always humanity remained involved, teaching, guiding, learning. The galaxy transformed, not overnight, not easily. There were conflicts, species who rejected the gifts out of pride or fear, worlds that tried to use the technology for conquest. But slowly, steadily, a new order emerged. One built on cooperation rather than competition, on sharing rather than hoarding. Chen lived through all of it. She took the immortality treatment after 50 years of debate with herself. Not because she wanted to live forever, but because there was still work to do. Still bridges to build, still understanding to foster. She stood now on Axiom Prime, the same station where the Conclave had met a millennium ago. Where Earth's true name had first been spoken, the station looked different now, newer, stranger. It existed partially in multiple dimensions. Humanity had helped redesign it. The Conclave was gathering again for the ceremony of names. But this time something was different. The eldest ones had returned, those ancient beings of pure energy who had fled in terror 1,000 years ago. They had come back. Chen watched them enter the great chamber. They looked the same. Shimmers of light. Colors beyond description, but they felt different. Less afraid. More curious, one of them approached her. Its voice resonated in her bones. "We have watched from afar. We saw what happened after we left. We saw what you became." "And what did we become?" Chen asked. "Something we did not think possible. Enders who stayed, who wielded power that could end ages but chose instead to begin new ones. We have seen many Ender species across our existence. You are the first to make this choice. The Vryn never chose to stay. The Vryn tried. For a time. But the pull of transcendence was too strong. Once they had solved the final problems of existence, remaining here felt limiting. Like trying to live in a house after you have learned to fly. But you have found a way to fly and still keep your house. To transcend and still remain grounded." The ceremony began. Species came forward one by one to speak their homeworld's true name. Chen listened to them. Whisper of endless wind, forged beneath 7 suns, all the names she remembered from 1,000 years ago. But now they sounded different, less isolated, more connected. Then it was humanity's turn again. Chen walked to the speaking stone. She had done this before, a millennium ago. In fear and confusion, now she did it in understanding. She placed her hand on the stone, spoke the true name, cradle that birthed the Enders. But this time something was different. The translation that appeared in every mind was not the same. It had shifted, evolved. Some species heard cradle of second chances. Others heard forge of impossible choices. Still others heard names that had no words. Only feelings, hope, connection, transformation. Krethak approached her after. He was older now. Even his species aged eventually, but slowly. He would live for millennia more if he chose. He had taken the immortality treatment 500 years ago. "Your true name has changed," he said. "Or perhaps we simply hear it differently now." "Names are not fixed," Chen said. "They are relationships, between the named and the one who names. We have not changed what we are. But what we are has changed what we mean to the galaxy. Do you ever regret it? Staying? You could have ascended. You could have left all of this behind. Explored dimensions beyond counting. Solved mysteries that would make our greatest achievements look like children's puzzles." Chen looked around the chamber, at the thousands of species gathered, at the connections they had built, at the civilization they had created together. Not perfect. Not without conflict, but alive, growing, evolving together. "No," she said. "Because the greatest mystery is not out there in higher dimensions. It is here. It is us. Together. Building something no single species could build alone." The eldest one who had spoken to her earlier appeared beside them. "We have learned something from watching you. We who have existed for so long. We thought wisdom came from age, from seeing galaxies born and die, but perhaps true wisdom is knowing when to stay, when to remain in the moment rather than transcending it." "Why did you come back?" Chen asked. "Because we were lonely. We had transcended so far that we had nothing left to transcend toward. We had solved so many problems that we had forgotten why we wanted to solve them. You reminded us. Purpose is not something you achieve. It is something you create. Together." The ceremony ended. The conclave broke up into smaller gatherings. Species mixing, talking, planning. Chen walked through them. She was no longer just humanity's ambassador. She had become something more, a symbol, a reminder that power and humility could coexist, that evolution did not require abandonment. Dr. Okonkwo found her on an observation deck. He looked much as he had 1,000 years ago. He had chosen minimal aging, said he liked having lived long enough to be interesting but not so long that nothing surprised him anymore. "I have been studying true names," he said, "trying to understand how they work. How they change. I think I figured something out. Tell me. True names are not prophecies. They are questions. Every homeworld asks its children something. Earth asked us if we would end or endure. The Zephrani's world asks them to remember the winds. The Chromath's world asks them to forge. Each name is a question about identity. About choice. Chen considered this. And we answered our question. Not just answered. We changed the question. Earth no longer asks if we will end. It asks what we will begin. They stood together in silence, watching stars through the observation window. Some of those stars had human colonies now. Others hosted species humanity had helped. Still others remained untouched, waiting, full of potential. Commander Volkov joined them. She had aged more than either of them, not from lack of treatment, but from choice. She said warriors needed to feel mortality, needed to remember what they fought for, what they protected. The fleet is ready, she said. Not for war. For exploration. 50,000 ships, each one crewed by mixed species, humans, Zephrani, Chromath, eldest ones, all of them. Together. Ready to see what is beyond the known galaxy. Will you lead them? Chen asked. Volkov smiled. It was not a warrior's smile. It was something softer. More hopeful. No, I am too old for that. But my great-great-granddaughter will. She has the same fire I had. The same stubbornness. But she also has something I never had. She grew up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal, where different species were not threats but partners. She will lead well. Chen felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not pride exactly. Not satisfaction. Something deeper. Something that had no name. The universe had feared humanity, had been ready to destroy them. But humanity had done something the universe did not expect. They had stayed. They had shared. They had proven that enders did not have to end anything. They could begin new ages, new possibilities, new ways of existing together. Earth's true name was no longer a warning. It was an invitation, not to transcendence, not to power, but to something harder, something more valuable. It was an invitation to remain, to stay grounded even while reaching for the stars, to wield godlike power with mortal humility, to evolve without leaving others behind. The cradle that birthed the enders had become something else. Something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. It had become the ones who remained. And that made all the difference. The end. The Battle of Nexus Prime would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned what humans really were. Fleet Admiral Li Subin stood on the bridge of the Busan's Defiance, watching the largest space battle in galactic history unfold before her. Ships from 50 different species fought together against the Dravek swarm, all of them following tactics that humans had taught them. Enemy reinforcements jumping in from Sector 7, reported her tactical officer. Looks like 300 swarm vessels, maybe more. Li Subin nodded calmly. A year ago, news like that would have meant certain defeat. The swarm had never retreated, never been stopped, never been anything but a force of pure destruction. But that was before they met humanity. Signal all ships, she ordered. Execute pattern Chaos 7. Across the battlefield, human and alien vessels scattered like leaves in the wind. To anyone watching, it looked like complete disorder. Ships flew in every direction with no apparent plan. Some headed straight for the enemy. Others seemed to flee toward empty space. The swarm creatures, each one the size of a city, moved to intercept what they thought was a panicked retreat. Their collective intelligence had learned to read galactic military tactics over centuries of conquest. They knew how civilized species fought. They didn't know how humans fought. Now, Li Subin whispered. The scattered ships suddenly weren't scattered anymore. They were exactly where they needed to be. The fleeing vessels had positioned themselves behind swarm reinforcements. The charging ships had drawn the main enemy force into a trap. In seconds, the disordered retreat became a perfectly coordinated ambush. Beautiful, said her communications officer, who happened to be a Velthari. 6 months ago, his people had called humans too chaotic to be trusted. Now he watched human tactics with something like wonder. The battle raged for 3 days around Nexus Prime, the crystal world where humanity had been condemned 10 years before. The great amphitheater where aliens had voted for human exile now stood in the shadow of burning starships. Colonel Oh Shung-ho led his strike teams deep into swarm-controlled space, hitting the creatures' nursery ships with surgical precision. These were the vessels where new swarm creatures were born from consumed matter. Destroy them and the swarm couldn't replace its losses. Remember, he told his teams over the radio, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to win, period. The strike teams used every dirty trick humans had ever invented. They hid inside asteroid fields until swarm patrols passed, then struck without warning. They used enemy signals to confuse swarm communications. They even rammed damaged ships into critical targets when conventional weapons failed. It was warfare without honor, glory, or rules. It was human warfare. Commander Jiang Min-jung developed new flying patterns that confused the swarm's collective intelligence. Her pilots flew in formations that looked random, but contained hidden mathematics. The swarm creatures tried to learn and adapt, but there was nothing to learn. How does this work? Asked a Korthak pilot after flying one of Jiang's patterns. It doesn't, she replied. That's why it works. The aliens were starting to understand something important about humanity. These weren't the chaotic warriors the galaxy had feared. They were problem solvers who had learned to use chaos as a tool. But humanity's greatest contribution to the war wasn't military. It was teaching the galaxy how to work together. Diplomat Kim Yu-jin had the hardest job of anyone in the fleet. She had to keep dozens of species united when their natural instinct was to blame each other for every setback. The Zelani are hoarding medical supplies, complained a Velthari commander. The Velthari won't share intelligence about swarm movements, accused a Korthak admiral. The Korthak refused to coordinate their attacks with our schedule, said a Zelani captain. Kim listened to it all with endless patience. She had learned something during humanity's exile that the aliens were just discovering now. Survival required cooperation, even with people you didn't like. You're all right, she told them during one heated meeting. Every species here has good reasons not to trust the others. You've been enemies for thousands of years. But the swarm doesn't care about your history. It just wants to eat you all. She pulled up a map of the galaxy showing the worlds the swarm had consumed. Look at this. The swarm doesn't care if you're Velthari or Korthak or Zelani. Dead worlds all look the same to them. You can spend time fighting each other, or you can spend time fighting the real enemy. Your choice. Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to learn cooperation. Species shared resources they had hoarded for centuries. Old enemies worked side by side on joint projects. Military forces that had never trusted each other started operating as a single unit. The humans made it work by showing them how. Human engineers taught alien technicians how to repair each other's equipment. Human doctors treated anyone who was hurt regardless of species. Human soldiers fought alongside beings who had voted for their exile. I don't understand your people, Admiral Thelvara said to Kim during a brief break in the fighting. What don't you understand? We condemned you. We cast you out of the galaxy. We made sure you suffered for 10 years. And now you're here, dying to protect us. Why? Kim was quiet for a moment, thinking of Earth in the dark years after exile. The shortages, the fear, the feeling of being abandoned by the universe because that's not who we are, she said finally. You judged us by your own standards. You thought we would be as petty and vindictive as you were. You were wrong. The breakthrough came when Dr. Kang Yunsu activated the experimental weapons that humans had built during their exile. 10 years of forced innovation had created technology that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The weapons didn't work through brute force. They worked by understanding patterns the galaxy had never noticed. While alien scientists had focused on building bigger guns, humans had focused on understanding their enemy. Activating disruption field, Dr. Kang reported from her lab aboard the Soul's Pride. The effect was immediate and devastating. Swarm creatures across the battlefield suddenly stopped coordinating. Their collective intelligence, which had made them unstoppable, shattered like glass. How did you do that? Asked a Velthari scientist who was monitoring the battle. We studied them, Dr. Kang replied. While you were building stronger weapons, we were learning how they think. You can't kill an idea with a bigger gun, but you can break it with a better idea. The isolated swarm creatures cut off from their collective mind became confused and vulnerable. Ships that had been invincible suddenly couldn't adapt to changing tactics. Creatures that had consumed worlds started making simple mistakes. The tide of battle turned in hours. As swarm reinforcements broke apart and fled toward deep space, President Han So-young arrived at Nexus Prime aboard the Yao, diplomatic vessel Soul's Hope. She had come to address the Galactic Council, in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned. The great amphitheater was different now. Alien representatives who had once sat in judgment of humanity now looked to her for leadership. The beings who had voted so confidently for human exile now understood what they had almost lost. "President Han," said the Velthari representative, "we owe you an apology. We were wrong about your species, terribly wrong." Han looked around the chamber where her people had been condemned. The crystal wall still bore scorch marks from the battle that had raged outside. "You were wrong," she agreed, "but not in the way you think." The aliens looked confused. "You thought we were dangerous because we fought when threatened. You thought we were chaotic because we didn't follow your rules. You thought we were unworthy because we were different." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You weren't wrong about what we are. You were wrong about what those things mean. Our willingness to fight made us your defenders. Our chaos made us unpredictable enough to defeat an enemy you couldn't understand. Our difference made us strong enough to save you all." The vote to readmit humanity to the galactic community was unanimous. 847 species voted to welcome back the people they had cast out. But President Han's response surprised everyone. "We'll consider your offer," she said, "but not as supplicants grateful for your acceptance. If we rejoin the galaxy, it will be as equals who have earned our place through our actions, not through your approval." The galaxy had turned its back on humanity. Now humanity was deciding whether to forgive them for it. And in that moment, the aliens finally understood what they had really lost 10 years ago. Not a dangerous enemy, but the one force that could have saved them all along. The Inchin Rising dropped out of hyperspace like a ghost returning from the dead. Captain Nam Kiwu studied the screens showing the Velthari system, and what he saw made his stomach turn. 3 of the 5 Velthari worlds were gone. Not destroyed, consumed. Where green planets had once orbited their star, only empty space remained. The Dravik swarm had eaten everything, down to the last grain of sand. The remaining 2 worlds were under siege. Massive creatures the size of battleships swarmed around them like hungry insects. Each creature pulsed with a sickly light as it fed on the planets below. "Captain," said his communications officer, "I'm getting signals from other ships." Behind the Inchin Rising, more human vessels appeared. The Soul's Hammer, built in the shipyards of Mars. The Busan's Pride, assembled from asteroid metal in the belt. Dozens of ships that had been hidden for 10 years, waiting for this moment. They weren't pretty ships. No smooth alien curves or exotic materials. These were human ships, tough, practical, built to work in the worst conditions. Mining vessels turned into carriers, cargo haulers equipped with experimental weapons, even luxury liners converted to hospital ships. "Open a channel to the Velthari," Captain Nam ordered. The face that appeared on his screen made him pause. Admiral Thelvara had been one of the aliens who testified against humanity at their trial. Her 6 arms had gestured dramatically as she called humans dangerous. Her black mirror eyes had shown nothing but contempt. Now those same eyes showed only desperate hope. "Humans?" she whispered. "But you were exiled. Why are you here?" Captain Nam kept his voice steady. "Because it's the right thing to do. Send us your defensive positions. We're moving to intercept the swarm." What followed was humanity's first real battle against an alien enemy that wasn't interested in talking. "Commander," Park Hyun-woo led the first wave of human fighters toward a cluster of swarm creatures, approaching Velthari Prime. His pilots flew ships held, together with determination and spare parts, facing monsters that had devoured 100 worlds. "Remember your training," he told his squadron over the radio. "These things are big, but they're not smart like us. They react to patterns, so don't give them patterns to learn." The battle was unlike anything humans had ever experienced. The swarm creatures moved like living ships, their bodies changing shape to avoid weapons fire. They fired beams of energy that could cut through metal like paper. But they had never fought humans before. Where alien fleets had attacked in neat formations, humans swarmed like angry bees. Where other species used overwhelming firepower, humans used tricks and traps. When traditional tactics failed, humans made up new ones on the spot. "Gold Leader, this is Gold 3, came a voice over the radio. "I can't get a clear shot at that big one." "Then don't take a clear shot," Park replied. "Use the asteroid field. Make it chase you into the rocks." The human pilot led the swarm creature on a wild chase through floating chunks of metal and ice. The creature, focused on its prey, didn't notice the trap until too late. The asteroid field channeled it into a narrow space where the other human fighters waited. The creature died in a burst of light. Its ancient hunger finally ended. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. Species that had voted for humanity's exile watched in stunned silence as human ships threw themselves into battle after battle. Dr. Song Hye-jin worked in the medical bay of the Soul's Pride, treating wounded Velthari soldiers alongside injured human marines. The aliens stared at her with their mirror eyes, unable to understand why she would save beings who had condemned her species. "Why do you help us?" asked a wounded Velthari warrior. Dr. Song looked up from her work. "Because you're hurt and I'm a doctor. That's all the reason I need." The war changed both humans and aliens. The galaxy began to see that these exiled humans fought differently than anyone else. They didn't seek glory or conquest. They sought solutions. Engineering Chief Ryu Dong-min turned Cargo Bay 3 into a weapons factory, building new tools to fight the swarm between battles. His team worked around the clock, modifying mining lasers into ship killers, turning construction equipment into weapons of war. "We need more firepower," reported Captain Nam after a particularly hard battle. "The swarm adapts too fast to our weapons." "Then we'll build weapons that adapt faster," Ryu replied. It wasn't just the weapons that changed. The humans changed the way the galaxy fought. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years found themselves working together under human coordination. Diplomat Kim Yoo-jin spent her days mediating between alien groups that wanted to kill each other almost as much as they wanted to stop the swarm. The Korthak blamed the Velthari for not warning them about the swarm. The Velthari accused the Zilani of abandoning their colonies. Old hatred threatened to tear apart the alliance before it could really begin. "You can fight each other after we stop the swarm," Kim told them during one heated argument. "Right now you need each other to survive." Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to work together. Human tactics spread to alien fleets. Species that had never spoken to each other started sharing information. The rigid military doctrine that had failed against the swarm gave way to human flexibility. 6 months after the first human intervention, the war's character began to change. The swarm, which had consumed worlds without resistance, started meeting real opposition. Fleet Admiral Choi Min-seok coordinated the largest combined fleet in galactic history, from his flagship, the Busan's Defiance. Ships from dozens of species flew in formation, their different designs and technologies working together under human tactical planning. "The key is not to fight them the way they expect," he told his alien commanders during a strategy meeting. "They learn from patterns, so we don't give them patterns, we give them chaos." The aliens had trouble understanding human tactics at first. Where they saw disorder, humans saw opportunity. Where they saw defeat, humans saw problems to solve. "This makes no sense," complained a Korthak admiral. "Your ships are attacking from 17 different directions at once. There's no coordination." "That is the coordination," Choi replied. "The swarm can't adapt to what it can't predict." The battle for the Nexus system proved him right. The same crystal worlds where humanity had been condemned became the site of the galaxy's greatest victory against the swarm. Human ships darted between alien vessels like dancers in a deadly ballet. They struck where the swarm least expected, vanished when the creatures tried to respond, and appeared somewhere else entirely to strike again. The galaxy watched in amazement as the unstoppable swarm began to stumble. These creatures that had devoured worlds were confused by human unpredictability. They couldn't learn patterns that didn't exist. As the battle ended with swarm creatures retreating for the first time in galactic memory, Admiral Thelvara approached Captain Nam on the command deck of his ship. "I don't understand," she said. "We cast you out. We called you dangerous. We turned our backs on you completely. Why did you come back to help us?" Nam looked out at the stars through the ship's windows. Somewhere out there, human ships were helping to rebuild worlds the swarm had damaged. Human doctors were treating alien wounded. Human engineers were sharing their hard-won knowledge with beings who had once scorned them. "You're right," he said finally. "You did turn your backs on us, but we're not you." The simple words carried a weight that made the alien admiral step back. In them, she heard everything the galaxy had missed about humanity. Their refusal to abandon others, even when others abandoned them. Their determination to help, even when help wasn't deserved. The galaxy had cast out humanity because they feared what humans might become. Now they were seeing what humans had chosen to become instead. And for the first time in 10 years, The aliens began to understand what they had really lost when they voted for exile. The first reports came in broken pieces, scattered across the alien communication networks like whispers of a nightmare. Admiral Cho Jae-sung sat in the command center of Titan Base, reading the intercepted messages that his team had decoded. The words made his blood run cold. "Sir?" said Colonel Bae Young-mi, her voice tight with worry. "Another transmission just came in. The Velthari outer colonies. They're gone." Cho looked up from his screen. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "Consumed, sir. 3 billion people. The entire population of their border worlds. Something called the Dravik Swarm hit them 4 days ago. There's nothing left but empty space." Cho had heard stories about the Dravik Swarm in the old alien databases. Ancient creatures that lived in the dark between galaxies. They came like locusts eating everything in their path, turning matter into more of themselves. Most aliens thought they were just legends. The legends were wrong. More reports flooded in hour by hour. The Korthak homeworld under attack. Entire star systems going dark. Fleets of alien warships being destroyed so fast that their distress calls cut off in mid-sentence. "How many worlds have fallen?" Cho asked. Young Mai checked her computer. 17 confirmed. "Maybe twice that many we can't reach anymore. And sir, they're heading inward. Toward the galactic core. Toward Earth." On the other side of human space, Director Lim Jun-soo watched the same reports from Global Defense Command on Earth. His computers tracked the swarm's movement, calculating speed and direction. The numbers were terrifying. "Show me the projection," he told his team. The main screen lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked where the swarm had struck. A yellow line showed their path, straight toward the center where most civilized worlds lived. "At their current rate," said his assistant Dr. Kim, "they'll reach the galactic core in 15 years. After that they come for us," Lim finished. The galaxy that had exiled humanity was tearing itself apart in panic. The same aliens who had voted so confidently to cast out the humans now sent desperate messages begging for help from anyone who would listen. The Galactic Council, which had seemed so powerful and united during humanity's trial, cracked under pressure. Old enemies blamed each other for not seeing the threat coming. Allies abandoned each other to save their own worlds. "The Velthari are requesting emergency aid," Young-mi reported to Admiral Cho. "They're offering trade agreements, technology sharing, even territory if someone will help them." Cho almost laughed. The same aliens who had called humans dangerous were now offering bribes for help. The same beings who had voted to exile humanity were learning what real danger looked like. But the laughter died in his throat. This wasn't just about the aliens anymore. The swarm wouldn't stop at alien worlds. When they finished eating the galaxy, they would come for Earth too. On Earth, President Han So-young called an emergency meeting of the Human Assembly. Representatives from every colony, every station, every ship gathered in the Great Hall via video link. The debate that followed would decide humanity's fate. "They cast us out," said the representative from Mars colony. "Why should we help them now?" "Because they're still people," replied the delegate from Europa Station. "Different from us, but still thinking, feeling beings. We can't just watch them die." "They watched us suffer for 10 years, said another voice. "They made sure we couldn't trade, couldn't expand, couldn't even leave our own star system. Now they want our help." Admiral Cho spoke from Titan Base. "The swarm won't stop with alien worlds. Once they consume the galaxy, they'll come for us. This isn't about helping the aliens. It's about survival." The argument went on for hours. Some humans wanted revenge, to let the galaxy burn for what it had done to them. Others believed that helping was the right thing to do regardless of the past. In the end, it was President Han who settled the matter. 10 years ago, they judged us," she said. "They decided we were too dangerous, too violent, too different to share the galaxy with them. Today, we get to show them who we really are." She paused, looking at the faces on the screens around her. "We could stay hidden here in our corner of space. We could wait and hope the swarm destroys itself on alien worlds before it reaches us. We could let billions die while we do nothing." Another pause. "But that's not who we are. That's not who humans are. We don't abandon people who need help, even if those people once abandoned us. We're better than that. We have to be better than that." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would intervene. The decision meant revealing secrets that humans had kept hidden for 10 years. Ships built in secret shipyards. Weapons developed in underground labs. technology born from years of forced innovation. Admiral Cho received his orders the next day. Take the fleet to Velthari space. Engage the swarm. Show the galaxy what humans can do. As his ships prepared to leave human space for the first time in a decade, Cho thought about the irony. Humanity's first act after being freed from exile would be to save the aliens who had exiled them. The swarm was vast and terrible, consuming worlds like a hungry animal. But they had never faced humans before. They had never met a species that saw impossible odds as just another problem to solve. The galaxy had 10 years to regret casting out humanity. Now they would see what those 10 years had created. They would learn what humans became when they had nothing left to lose except their principles. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity back to the galaxy that had rejected them. This time, they came not as supplicants asking for acceptance, but as saviors offering salvation. Whether the galaxy deserved saving or not, humans would find out. But they would try, because that's what humans did. They helped even when it hurt. They saved others even when others wouldn't save them. The swarm had consumed 100 worlds. Soon they would learn what happened when they tried to consume one that fought back with everything humans had learned in their exile. The galaxy was about to discover what they had really cast out 10 years ago, not a threat to be contained, but the one force that might save them all. 5 years had passed since the ships came home from Nexus Prime. 5 long years of silence from the stars. Commander Lee Min-ho floated in his spacesuit outside Mining Station 7, watching his crew work on the broken harvester. The machine was old, built back when humans could trade with aliens for the good metal parts. Now they had to make do with whatever they could find in the asteroid belt. "Hand me that wrench, Jinsu," he said into his radio. "Which one, Commander?" came the reply. "The one held together with tape or the one missing half its teeth?" Lee Min-ho almost smiled. His crew still had their sense of humor even after all this time. They needed it. Everything was breaking down, and they had no way to get new parts. Back on Earth, things were getting harder every day. The planet held 12 billion people, and they all needed food, air, and power. Before the exile, Earth had imported food from dozens of farm worlds. Rare metals came from alien mining operations. Even simple things like medical supplies had come from other planets. Now there was only what humans could make themselves. On Europa Station, Chief Engineer Kim Da-hee worked 18 hours every day trying to keep the ice miners running. The station dug water ice from Jupiter's moon and sent it to Earth. Without that water, billions would die. But the machines were dying too. Every week brought new problems. Fusion reactors that had run for decades started to fail. Computer systems crashed and couldn't be fixed without alien-made chips. Even the lights dimmed as power became scarce. "We're losing Reactor 3. Reported Engineer Park from the control room. "The magnetic containment is failing again." Kim Da-hee rubbed her tired eyes. "Can we patch it?" "For maybe a week. But we need new coils and we don't have the materials to make them." It was the same story everywhere. Mars Colony had cut its population in half to save resources. The research station at Proxima Centauri had gone dark completely. They just didn't have enough ships to supply it anymore. But something strange was happening in the silence. Something the aliens who voted for exile had not expected. In the underground labs beneath Luna City, Dr. Yoon Tai-ho led a team of the smartest humans alive. They worked in secret, away from the watching eyes of alien spy drones that patrolled the edge of human space. "Show me the new power cell design," Dr. Yoon said to his assistant, Song. Song pulled up the plans on a simple computer screen. No fancy alien technology here, just human engineering pushed to its limits. "It's crude compared to what we used to import," Song admitted. "But it works, and we can build it with materials we already have." Dr. Yoon nodded. It wasn't pretty, but it would power a mining laser for twice as long as the old alien-made cells. They were learning to do more with less. Learning to build things that worked without exotic materials from across the galaxy. Across human space, the same thing was happening. Cut off from alien trade, humans had to become creative. They found new ways to grow food in small spaces. They built machines that could fix themselves. They even learned to make their own medicine from Earth plants. The aliens had wanted to weaken humanity by cutting them off. Instead, they were making humans stronger. President Han So-young stood in the United Earth Government building, looking out at the city below. The lights were dimmer than they used to be, but they were still on. People still walked the streets. Children still played in the parks. "Ma'am," said her aide, "the monthly resource report is ready." President Han took the tablet and read the numbers. Food production was up 3%. Water recycling was more efficient than ever. Even population growth had slowed as families chose to have fewer children in the difficult times. "We're surviving," she said quietly. "Yes, ma'am, but for how long?" President Han looked up at the stars through her office window. Somewhere out there, alien ships made sure no human vessel could leave the Sol system. The galaxy had moved on without them, probably thinking the human problem was solved. They were wrong. "Send a message to all colony leaders," she said. "Tell them to prepare for Phase 2. Phase 2 was the plan they had worked on in secret for 5 years. Not just survival, growth. Not just making do with what they had, making it better. In hidden shipyards behind the moon, workers built new vessels. They weren't as fast or pretty as alien ships, but they were tough. Built by humans for humans to do human work. The materials came from asteroids that humans mined themselves. The power came from fusion reactors that humans designed. Even the computers ran on code that humans wrote. The galaxy thought cutting us off would kill us, President Han said to her aide. They forgot that humans have been cut off before. We've always found a way. She thought about Earth's history. Humans stranded on islands had learned to build boats. Humans trapped in deserts had learned to find water. Humans facing ice ages had learned to make fire. Being alone in space was just another challenge. And humans were very good at solving challenges. On Mining Station 7, Commander Lee Min-ho watched his crew finish fixing the harvester. It wouldn't win any beauty contests, but it worked. It would dig more metal from the asteroids to feed Earth's growing factories. "Good work, everyone," he said over the radio. "Let's get her back online." The machine hummed to life, its crude but effective systems starting their endless work. Around the station, dozens of other machines did the same. All of them built by human hands, powered by human innovation, guided by human determination. The aliens had 5 years to forget about humanity, 5 years to get comfortable with their decision, 5 years to believe the threat was gone. Those 5 years were almost over. In the darkness between stars, humanity had learned something important. They didn't need the galaxy's permission to exist. They didn't need alien approval to grow. They didn't need anyone's help to become what they were meant to be. The galaxy had turned its back on them. Soon it would turn around again, and when it did, it would find that humanity had not faded away in the darkness. Instead, they had learned to make their own light. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime stretched as far as the eye could see. Hundreds of alien beings filled the crystal seats that rose in circles around the center floor. Some had wings that glowed with soft light. Others looked like walking trees with silver bark. A few were so strange that humans had no words to describe them. Admiral Kang Wu stood in the middle of it all. His dark blue uniform was pressed and clean, but his face showed the weight of what was happening. Around him, the voices of 800 different species mixed into a sound like rushing water. The trial had been going on for 3 days. 3 days of listening to aliens tell the galaxy why humans were dangerous. 3 days of watching beings who had never set foot on Earth decide the fate of 12 billion people. "The humans expand too fast," said the Velthari ambassador. She was tall and thin with 6 arms and eyes like black mirrors. "They take worlds that do not belong to them. They build cities where none should exist." Murmurs of agreement echoed through the hall. Kang Wu kept his face calm, but inside his heart was heavy. He remembered the first human colony on New Eden. Families from Earth had worked for years to turn that dead rock into a green world. They had followed every rule, filed every paper, asked permission for everything. But the Velthari wanted that world too. Dr. Park Soo-jin stepped forward. She was small next to the alien giants around her, but her voice was strong. "We came in peace," she said. "Humans have shared their medicine with your sick. We have taught you how to grow food on dead worlds. We have given freely of our knowledge." The Korthak delegate made a sound like grinding metal. He was huge and covered in what looked like gray stone. "Humans are warriors," he said. "They fight when others seek peace. They carry weapons where none are needed." Kang Wu wanted to laugh, but it would have been bitter. Yes, humans carried weapons. They had learned long ago that the galaxy was not always safe. Pirates attacked trade ships. Some species saw humans as weak because they were new. A few alien groups thought human worlds would be easy to take. "We defend ourselves," Dr. Park said. "Nothing more." When the Zilani attacked our colony on Farhaven, we fought back. When pirates raided our trade routes, we stopped them. Is it wrong to protect our families? But the aliens were not listening anymore. Their minds were made up. Kang Wu could see it in their faces, their postures, the way they looked at the humans like something dirty. The vote came fast. A wall of light showed the results as each species cast their choice. Red meant exile. Blue meant freedom. Red, red, red. The lights kept coming, an endless stream of red that filled the wall. 846 species voted to cast humanity out of the galaxy.
Only one voted blue, the humans themselves. The hall erupted in celebration.
Aliens clicked, whistled, and sang in joy. They had removed the threat. They had cleaned the galaxy of the human problem. Kang Wu stood slowly. The noise died down as the aliens waited to hear what the defeated human would say. "We came to you with open hands," he said. His voice carried to every corner of the great hall. "We offered friendship, knowledge, and help. You have chosen to see us as enemies instead." He paused and looked around the hall. His eyes met those of beings who had once called themselves friends of humanity. "You celebrate today because you think you have won, but you have not won anything. You have only shown who you really are. History will remember this day, and it will not remember you kindly." The aliens fell silent. Some looked uncomfortable, others angry. A few seemed almost sad. Kang Wu turned and walked toward the exit. Dr. Park and the rest of the human team followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. Outside, their ship waited. The Soul's Pride was old but reliable, built in the shipyards above Earth 20 years ago. It would carry them home for what might be the last time. As they lifted off from Nexus Prime, Kang Wu looked back at the crystal city shrinking below. Somewhere in that city, the aliens were already planning how to divide up human trade routes and colonies. They would split the wealth that humans had created and feel good about it. "Sir," said Captain Lee, the ship's pilot, "what do we tell Earth?" Kang Wu was quiet for a long time. Through the ship's windows, he could see other alien vessels. Some were already heading toward human space, ready to enforce the exile. Others would spread the news across the galaxy. The humans were finished. "We tell them the truth," he finally said. "We tell them that we are alone now, cut off from everything we built out here. But we also tell them something else." "What's that, sir?" Kang Wu smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had just learned what his enemies were really like. "We tell them that being alone is not the same as being weak. We tell them that humans have survived worse things than this, and we tell them that someday, somehow, we will prove every one of those aliens wrong." The Soul's Pride jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last free humans away from the galaxy that had rejected them. Behind them, 800 alien species went back to their lives, sure that they had solved their human problem forever. They had no idea what humans could become when they had nothing left to lose. As the ship flew through the darkness between stars, Kang Wu made a promise to himself. The galaxy had turned its back on humanity, but humanity would not break. They would not fade away quietly. Instead, they would become something the aliens never expected. Something stronger. Something better. Something that would make the galaxy regret this day for a very long time. The Soul's Pride carried that promise home to Earth, where 12 billion humans waited to learn that they were now truly alone in the vast, cold universe. But they would not stay alone forever. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs.